I am very stoked to have this conversation with a man that, I've never actually met in person yet, but we've been in the same venue. His name is Daniel Sauls, and he is currently on tour with Lauren Daigle, doing some amazing things. And just by way of introduction, we literally crossed paths. And so in July, I went out to New York to meet. It was Lewiston, New York, and
Hmm.
I met with Halves. And at the time, Jared was playing drums for Lauren, and
Yep.
we met at some custard shop. And because Halves was there, and they started talking about a guy named Daniel Sauls. That I was like, who? Like, I kind of heard about what you were doing, like with samples and like the DJing side of stuff, but I was like, oh, I would have loved to meet him. He's like, oh yeah, he was just here. He just took off to go back to the venue. So we're making up on lost time.
I love it. Yeah. I'm disappointed that we didn't get to meet over custard. That's that could be a first for the camp for sure. That's
There we go.
incredible.
Yeah, man. And but just welcome to the Worship Drummer podcast. Very grateful for the time that you're giving us to chat. And to start things off, in case people have no clue who you are and what you currently do, we'll start there, and then maybe we'll backtrack later a little more to just how you found your way to what you're doing nowadays. So yeah, just introduce yourself to us.
Sure, yeah. Well, yeah, I'm Daniel. I do I mean, I guess you would call it DJing. Um, but instead of your typical like, scratching and mixing sort of thing, which is an aspect of it, it isn't the whole thing of what I do. My main thing is live sampling.
Yeah.
So I'll take something a program Ableton. I'm sure a lot of y'all are familiar for utilizing it for like playback in particular or any sort of production. But I like to use it as a means of performing stems, performing like actual like strings and percussion and other like album elements that are hard to create in a live setting. Um, and I've been doing that for Lauren. I mean, literally, I think 3 weeks before You Say came out, so that was 2018.
Paul Mabry
So
days.
the Paul Mabry days, like I had no idea. Like when I jumped into the camp before I was serving steaks down on Broadway in Nashville, and I just got the call randomly. And yeah, I didn't know who Lauren was. I wasn't really familiar too deeply, really at all, with the CCM scene, and certainly how big of a hub Nashville is for that. And yeah, walking into that space, it was just a very I don't know. There's just a lot of love in that space, and a lot of permission given in that space for what I do. Which is there's not a lot of folks that take finger pads and play string parts. So, Paul had the vision to do something like that for Lauren with the upcoming, album at the time, Look Up Child, which was the string arrangements were so lush, so great. His
Yeah.
brother Brett did a lot of that arrangement. And yeah, like just kind of being able to be in that camp. And yet again, the word is like permission and just a lot of vulnerability was allowed for me from leadership like Paul, which was, man, what a godsend to be able to be in that to be in that space when you go from yet again serving steaks for just people trying to have a good time on Broadway to being able to share a stage with incredible performers and yet again just people with a vision to spread the word you know
Yeah. So quick
so
question. So like typically I would imagine people who tour have like a multi-track rig and they're firing stems and they just play along, to that stuff.
mhm.
Why is there a space for with Lauren, like for you to play these things live versus, well, let's just fire an Ableton session and run it.
True. Yeah, and I mean, we honestly still do that as
Yeah.
well. And at the time, I was also running playback, so I had two computers on stage. So it was crazy. It was insane. But yeah, we I think Paul just had a vision of there being a more organic approach to the stems. I know, uh, it wasn't just Paul in that regards. Lauren, as you probably know, she's from Louisiana, and so the spirit of just the humanized approach to performance, is so. I think that's just like an inherent part of like Louisiana. Like the groove in
Yeah.
New Orleans is that swung, swampy sort of feel, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So having having these parts be performed by a human that inherently will make a mistake, or now we can actually like, if we decide to double up on the verse, I just have to
Yeah.
go back and just play those parts versus having to go on my computer and quickly, okay, let's go back to that previous loop marker. It just becomes more of a performed human experience versus just every night performing to a template, which is valid in and of itself. And I do that too. It's like I'm I'm totally fine, and I have no qualms uh, with artists trying to just get the most exact
Right.
performance. But Lauren, I think, is trying to chase something that has the sonic capabilities of filling out a 20-piece string section with a human conducting it, essentially, which that's fun. I love doing it.
Man, okay. So I asked this question to Havs and Jared when I interviewed them about you. I don't know if you saw that or knew that, but
Oh
um,
man.
I was like, how do you do it? Because like I asked them, is this something that is done commonly? And then Daniel just kind of like said, okay, I'm going to learn from these cats who do this sort of thing. And then I'm just going to apply it to what we're doing. And I got the vibe and the impression that it's kind of like a very unique thing. And then you're just like pioneering how it's done. So I'd love to hear about your approach to that and like what's going through your mind when you're handed maybe some fresh songs of like, okay, how do I translate this into me playing this live for Lauren?
Yeah, man. So my origins when it comes to Ableton is hip hop sampling. So, and in particular slicing. So in that genre, in that art, basically you're taking old songs, right, pre-recorded material that have significant connection that you have a significant connection to.
Yeah.
So you're taking a phrase, say, and you're splitting it into like four different parts. Maybe it's a chord, maybe it's a word, and so in this case we'll go like one, two, three, four. With those slices, now I can just go one, 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 two, 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 three, 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 or I could change the order. I could go four, three, two, one. So if I approach that sort of more time-based groove sort of slicing, and I apply that to strings, all I'm doing is I'm taking chord qualities, so it's like say the progression's a one, 1 6 4 5, just
Yeah.
like standard. So 1 6 4 5, right? And then I can now hold this chord, hold the one chord for as long as I want to. Now I can
Yeah.
hold this chord for as long as I want to. So basically, it's taking a skill set that I was very familiar with and something I really enjoy doing, and just applying it to orchestration.
Yeah.
So like I'm not thinking like whenever we're playing like Love Like This, I am not thinking of arrangement in regards to chord qualities. In particular, I am thinking of them in sections. So
Mm,
and basically with every slice, I have to think of how long a note is, right? So like if I have a particular rhythm, if it's a dotted eighth rhythm that's coming up, it's like, okay, I have to be prepared for that. And with the particular instrument I use, which is the push, I have 64 pads to be able to create that arrangement. And then, so really at that point, it's slicing and then creating a system for me to be able to recall that performance and to be as accurate as I can be for every night.
man.
Which that's the whole thing. I mean, in regards to other people doing that way in particular, there isn't a lot. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of pioneers within this instrument that recall samples in a way. I mean, like the guy that does it for the Roots is Stro Elliott, if you're familiar with him. Oh, he's like just an incredible mind, but his approach is more from like a percussionist drummer sort of
Yeah.
standpoint. So he'll play like a bongo part here, and like literally, there's videos of like Questlove like passing off the stro, and he's playing like a drum solo, and it's spot on. It's spot on. It's like absolutely incredible to watch. So yeah, like it's the same. We're painting with the same canvas, but I think like he's doing landscapes and I'm doing abstract art, just
Yeah,
to
yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like it's we all utilize the same approach, the same format, but it's just utilized in a totally different way.
That's
Um
sick.
yeah, it's fun.
And so you have 64 pads. So like does this change over for every song? Like
Oh yeah.
so how do you map that and know like what you're hitting at any given moment?
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? Here, I should have done this before. I will pull up one of our sets while I'm talking this.
Do it.
Basically, the only way I can really do this is with the Push 2 that came out, like, I guess it must have been like 6 or 7 years ago. I can color code each pad. So I color code each section. Yet again, I'm not thinking about like the harmonic quality of the note.
Yeah.
I'm thinking more of where are we in the form and how long am I supposed to hold that note. So let's look at like here. So we got like,
I love this. Let's
hey,
go.
hey, class, here we go. Yeah. Oops, boop, boop, boop. Haha. So basically with this guy, I have like this red section here. This is still Rolling Stones. So red section is like my intro, and you can tell I have like a bunch of pink pads here and
Yeah.
one red. These pink pads, those are single fire shots. So I just push it once, I don't hold it.
Yeah.
Longer notes, right? So these darker orange spots, that's actually held notes. And then these, I think the quality of those, I believe those are whole notes, and then these are half notes coming off of it. And so for each press, basically I'm going left left to right, and then up, and then left to right, up. Is basically like the thought process. So um, yeah, basically
It's wild.
I'm yeah. So I just pick a color for a section. Darker notes means a longer note. So that kind of I can visually see what's happening there and then move on to the next section. I mean, for that song, I just have 2 pages, but I mean, that's still probably still Rolling Stones is about 96 samples. Um, there's a couple tracks off of the new album. Let me think. Like I think These Are the Days. I think has at least 130
Wow.
samples. I I think the whole set itself. I'm rocking 1,000. I think it's somewhere. I think almost 1,300 samples. It's crazy.
Wow.
So I'm really it's because I have that huge workload, I have to offload as much thinking as I can so that I can do what I'm hired to do, which is to react musically
Yeah.
with what everyone else is doing, right? So that's what the color coding allows me to do. And then obviously, just like everybody else, you just practice it.
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah, man.
wild, man. And I know I think at least you are a drummer as well, right?
Yeah, that's
So
my first. Mhm.
yeah. So do you feel like being a drummer like enhances what you do with all of these sampling, and tell us how?
Yeah, I think drumming it. I think feel is obviously like once you get past getting your rudiments and like having a firm understanding of your of the instrument. Um, I think the understanding of feel is kind of the most interesting part to chase, and the thing that kind of either stays with you when you find your sound, or it's something that you change as you evolve as a musician. So, like, if I'm approaching this as a strings player, I'm thinking that not all string parts I'm supposed to be right in on the downbeat, right?
Yeah.
It's like I need to be kind of hitting a little bit further back so that the drums kind of smack a little bit more, so that I'm not like supposed to be so on top of the beat in these sections. So I think as a drummer, me being able to think of rhythm in that way kind of allows me to conduct a section in that way as well. So, and then also, I mean, I do a little bit of drum programming. I mean, obviously, we got Javier Solis.
Yeah.
Like that dude can play so many things at the same time, and it sounds so good. And then our drummer right now, Sean Horton, absolutely just bonkers performer. Definitely comes from like more the gospel. I mean, played with uh, Israel Holton, so just kind of has the akida, all that
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
stuff. So between them two, they certainly know how to fill out the space. And then, it's like, "Oh, okay, Dan can play a little triangle part, or, Dan could do a little turntable thing." So I kind of like perform like the sprinkles on a cake. It's like
Yeah.
I like say that's exactly what I think of myself as, is because like sprinkles are not like if you just eat sprinkles on their own, they just don't really taste great. But inherently, when you put it on a cupcake, that cupcake tastes better. You know,
I love it.
it's all about substance. Like
Yes.
I'm not trying to be the substance. I'm just trying to enhance. You know, I'm just trying to salt bay. That's it.
I love it.
Yeah.
So on the new record, I could say new. September is still new. So
Mhm.
I know I would DM'd you this one that my favorite song on the album is "You're All I'll Take with Me," which
Ah,
I
bro.
came to discover that you had a hand in writing, along with Lauren and Grant Pittman. So
Yeah, man.
what are there any other songs on that album that you had a hand in writing?
No, no, that's really the only one, and I'm wow. It was a journey to get there, but well, first off, I mean, her writing team, like everyone that was a part of that project. I mean, obviously Jason Ingram played a very large role, especially in the more worshipful songs. Then when you're led by a production that's led by Mike Elizondo, who's if you're not familiar, any of your listeners are familiar, check out his credits. I mean, the bass line for In the Club, 50 Cent, like, you know, he was like the protege for like Dre for like 10
Wow.
years. And so, like, just incredible musical mind. And you can hear it on that album. It's just getting the words permission. He's just like, hey, Lauren, what kind of music do you like? Why don't you just do whatever you want? So when it came to writing All I'll Take with Me, it came from like a place of like Earth, Wind, and Fire,
Hmm.
sort of like really, just like that 70s funk, almost like breakbeat sort of like drum sound. just kind of came out of that place, especially when you're writing with uh, my buddy, and he's our band leader. Grant Pittman plays keys. Um, like trying to do something different, something more band sounding,
Yeah.
versus a lot of the other albums. Not to say it doesn't sound like a band, but they're just very production forward, which is super dope. Obviously, yet
Yeah.
again, like a lot of my favorite records are that as well. And then you just try to recreate a live sound for that. But All I'll Take With Me was a song that kind of comes from the spirit of a live band performing this arrangement. And Yeah, I think we started writing that over pandemic. I think we did that tour in 2021. And it was somewhere in the Midwest, and it started in a hockey locker room. So they had to like, I remember they like brought in Lysol just to kind of get that dirty gym sock smell out. Brought in a couple like really, just those classic Walmart $20 like standing lamps, and like burnt a candle. And we just listened to like Yeba. We listened to like a bunch of just like very soulful but modern sort of approaches to soul music. And yeah, that song came out, and yeah, just kind of seeing that through. When I think we got a call. I was like, Lauren's like, hey, I got like 3 more days in the studio, and Mike just wants to try to do that song. Can we get like a demo? And then I'm just like, just like trying to get
And that
trying
was
to
your
get that part
vocals, you
done.
said, right? Your
Yeah,
vocals on
yeah,
it. Bro, you
yeah.
got some pipes too.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I was coughing a lot in between intakes, man, because LD has a range, and it's hard to like. You can't really falsetto her high notes
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
without it sounding kind of wimpy and just not having the spirit. So it's just like, okay, here we go. Put on the big boy pants, and hopefully we'll have a couple days of recovery before I have to do it again. So yeah, man, I'm just yet again just super thankful to be in a camp where you know that the individual is celebrated enough and trusted enough to like actually write with him, because obviously that's not really a standard and not an expectation at all,
Yeah.
for any client that I would work with.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
just thankful for folks like her and Grant, to just instill uh, a place of sanctuary. I can be
Love it.
vulnerable. I can be who I am. It's great.
Yeah, no, I love it. I want to backtrack a little bit to something you said earlier about like when you're serving steak, and you know,
Yeah.
you don't just go from serving steak to like playing for Lauren Daigle. So obviously there had to be some history in music, and maybe if it was drumming or otherwise. So what was your upbringing like? And like, was it
Mm.
always Nashville, or something led you there? And because obviously you gotta have something in your bag to go from steaks to Paul Maybury. So
I love that. That's great. You nailed that. Yeah, so I'm originally from Atlanta. I guess my grandfather gave me his drum set. It's like a 1950s WFL kit. I still have. It's like that kick
wow,
drum is it sounds so good on everything. No, just took off the front head. I still have the calf skin, but it's like
wow,
the thing is just like it. I think the first song I probably learned on it was probably Holiday, which is that Green Day song from their album American Idiot. I was still am a huge Drake fan. It's awesome. But and then started getting into hip hop um just through, I think, Chappelle Show. I think there was a performance from Erica Badu. Um she was singing like Kiss Me on My Neck or something into like Sugar Free, and it was just like boom. I love this music. This is not something I have access to. I'm just and east of Atlanta, suburbia. I just that's not really a music and a culture I really had access to be able to listen and learn from. So then I think it was, what was the song? It was a Chick Corea song, Return to Forever tune where there's like a guitar solo. I was into this album just all day. And then I heard a Lupe Fiasco song, American Terrorist, and it features Jay-Z. I'm getting somewhere, I promise.
Yeah, yeah.
And I hear this guitar solo and the sampling, and that was the eureka moment of just like, oh my gosh, like this is what sampling is. This is the musical art form uh, that I think I gravitate towards. You know,
Mm.
it's like, how do I reuse something and make it fresh and also still honor, the people that originally created it. It's not like it's repurposing, but with an idea of like an homage, kind of like what we do in
Yeah.
jazz.
Yeah.
Jazz is like you're playing standards, right? It's like you're still honoring the piece for what it is, but you can still bring yourself in the 21st century into this new thing, to make it a new thing. I mean,
Yeah.
so I go from there. Um, I go up to MTSU, Middle Tennessee State, for audio production. And then I guess from there, I was just kind of like making beats. I was listening to a lot of Dead Mouse at the time. Big fan. Also a fellow Canadian, I believe.
Yeah.
But man, like and that's kind of when I really got into producing, getting into a lot of dance music, a lot of hip hop production. And I mean, really, the moment when I was able to kind of connect my love of live performance within drumming to the production, like the studio based production, there's this cat named Rick Wilkerson, um, who was doing like jazz fusion, but a lot of free jazz fusion stuff
Hmm.
and like modern, like Robert Glasper sort of approaches as well. So I guess we were just cooking in the studio, and he was like, "Man, like you're not even using piano rolls. You're just performing all of these samples. Would you do this on stage with me? Like, don't even come to rehearsal. Just show up and just do
Wow.
something." And I was like, "Sure, yeah." I wasn't too confident in myself at the time, so being able to have, folks in your camp that just kind of see something in you that you didn't see in yourself, it was just really invigorating. And yeah, like from there, I just developed that thing that, the live sampling free sort of thing. And fortunately, Nashville just doesn't really have a lot of electronic music. It's not like the first thing that people think of
Right.
when you think of Nashville, right? It's like guitars and more analog approaches.
Yeah.
So I just kind of developed a space for myself to do this thing while yet again, like obviously not making enough bread. So I gotta serve them free bread. Serve my
Right.
customers free bread, that is. But it was I'm basically it's just a journey of just like a bunch of things just randomly happen, or randomly happen. And it just all kind of pushed me towards this thing that I didn't know, like past Dan would not have any idea that I'd be playing arena shows with, an artist of this caliber.
Yeah.
But just to honor the word yes, of just like I'm just going to keep trying new things, and I'm just going to kind of throughout the whole process still be true to who I am, still love people, still, honor people and recognize my position is in a group. It's like what am I being hired to do, and also just what's my purpose in life, which is just supporting supporting other people, community, and hopefully, you know like Boy Scouts are supposed to do, man. Leaving the place better than you found it.
Yeah,
You know, that's it.
I love it.
That's it.
Being on tour, um, a lot of people I talk with, it's like amazing because they love what they do. But then there's also the part of like living from place to place out of a suitcase for, weeks, if not months on end.
Mm.
What are some tips for yourself and for those listening who maybe, I want to tour one day? Like, how do you normalize your life?
Mm. That's a good question. I'm still learning that for
Mm,
sure. But I mean, the biggest things are, I mean, family time is super important on the road, off the road. I mean, obviously, like trying to keep a connection with your actual family is super important.
yeah,
But if we're talking about, your band family, obviously being present for that as much as you can, but also being aware of the amount of space that you need when you're on those tours, it's just like, and especially even if you're doing a smaller tour where you're in a sprinter, this is even harder to do. Um, being able to get away and just to get away from the noise of, people sound checking, doing all that sort of stuff, being able to find space of just like solace, just to be able to be alone in your thoughts. I think that's the
yeah,
most important thing. And something I'm still trying to work on because I thrive off of people. I love I just get a really big dopamine hit whenever I'm with, just fellowship.
yeah,
That's super important to me, but also at the same time, that also takes out my energy. So it's like the way I refuel is I try to go on walks. That's a big one. I mean, vitamin D, that's really, really great substitute, obviously, and also not a substitute, essential. Sorry.
yeah,
Um, and just trying to eat right. I think you know, uh, salads are important, and also just being aware, like we were talking earlier. I mean, the good old coffee, man. Like we have a coffee cart, and that is awesome. I'm very thankful for it. But man, like 3 cups, and I just feel like garbage. And
yeah,
it just so happens I always need that third cup around 2 o'clock, and I'm just like, I can't do this. This is not sustainable. So yeah, I think it's just like listening to what your body needs, listening to what your heart needs, and all the while still, being a part of what's happening. And yeah, like, yeah, I can do some production on the side and stuff. Yes, I can call clients when I'm on the road. I could still clock into another job, but it's just like creating enough space for myself
right.
to be able to do well, number one, do my job, and for me to be who I am. You know, that's I think that's the you know putting the eggs in the multiple baskets, just trying to split off that time so that number one, I'm doing the thing I'm hired to do and
Yeah,
doing it well. Be there. I mean, obviously being there for my wife, and then being there for myself. Just trying to equally try to move between those things and to accomplish all of them. It's not easy.
yeah. It
It's
takes a
not
special
easy.
grace for sure.
Yes, man. Absolutely.
Not for the faint of heart. Um, so I know we were talking earlier. You guys are coming through here in Toronto in about a month from now. Um, what is your favorite part of the show? Maybe a couple of
Mm.
moments. And because our main audience is drummers, maybe something that caters to like the percussive side of all of it.
Yeah. Man, I mean, honestly, I think my favorite part of that show, there's that song Ego.
Yeah, it's a good
That was
song.
a part, that pocket is so dope. I think
Yeah.
that's Nate Smith on the original recording. It sounds like him,
Yeah.
just has that, and like obviously like Sean's like super game, has all the facility to be able to do that. So I mean, uh, and the strings on that song in particular are kind of sinister. So that dee-doo-doo-doo, it's just like a really just like takes me back to like am I watching like Batman Forever, or it's like you know what I'm saying? It just has that 90s, like, not film noir, but just that sort of tense, suspenseful thriller sort of sound. I think that's probably my favorite song to play. And then, I mean, honestly, even though I am such a groove oriented person, I've really found my heart really does long for the worshipful moments, and you know, especially in the past when we played like Love Like This and everything. Like those
Hmm.
songs are just like in the that's built into my DNA. I like, yeah, we would play. I'm trying to even think, a song called Inherited, which is it's a newer song, not necessarily a worship song, but just a song that honors your lineage, honors, the people that, are that influence you, that maybe aren't here any
Yeah.
longer, like just that sort of mentality, and to look out into a crowd and see, people crying and openly weeping, and just being like, yet again, creating a vulnerable space where
Right.
people are allowed to emotionally react to what you're doing. Like, I'm finding that every night, that's kind of my favorite thing to do,
Yeah.
so it's a dichotomy with the show. It's like, we got the choreography. I'm no choreo for the DJ. We just sit behind the booth. Oops, sorry, but
Yeah.
you do have those big moments. Like Turbulent Skies, obviously, is like, that's like the EDM, like, sort of approach, which is also really fun to play. Very high energy, a lot of tension in that
Yeah.
song, and then you go to those more legato moments. Ooh, but let's be honest, like, Still Rolling Stones, which I don't think has really changed. It didn't really change in the set at all. Like, it's pretty much the same tune. That thing feels so good.
Yeah.
Paul Maybury, right? I mean, dude, those drums, you know what I'm saying? Like, bro, I think that's probably, I know I've named like five favorites, but I think if I had to pick one, that's probably it,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Still Rolling Stones, man. I just love that program, and it's just really fun to play, man.
That's cool. Yeah. In
Yeah.
July, when I came out to meet you guys in Lewiston, New York,
Hmm.
you know, I remember earlier on, like, more the worship stuff that Lauren was doing, but now knowing, okay, it's more mainstream in terms of audience. I
Hmm.
I didn't know what to expect, but at the end of the show, at the end of the night, it was like a worship, like a legit worship moment. And I was talking with some people during that night, knowing that these aren't all Christians here, like it's not a church service. Um, but then hitting that moment, I was like, man, this is, I didn't expect it like that. But I
Hmm.
remember I was like filming stuff because I wanted B-roll content, but I had to stop because I was like, this is a moment here. And
Yeah.
and I remember coming home, my wife was like, how was it? I was like, that's all I could talk about. And I'm not like tooting a horn or anything. I was just, that was the thing I took home with me, was like, yeah, the band, the horns, everything was on fire. It was amazing. I was like, but
Hmm.
the flow moment at the end, like legit worshiping, and I was like, she was leading worship. Maybe people don't know that or don't call it that, but
Exactly.
as a pastor, I was like so happy. I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
Um,
I
uh,
think I don't think you're ever gonna take that out of her. That's what she's trying to do.
yeah,
But I think it's just like, and you said it. It's just like, how can we spread the love of Jesus to people that don't know them, or
yeah,
maybe were hurt, eh, you know, previously from folks that were trying to carry that, trying to
yeah,
carry. the name of Jesus, but in a way that is antithetical to the love aspects, and to, to having people come as they are,
Yeah.
seeing people past their sins, and seeing broken people like we all are, and that we're all just trying to, you know, we're all just trying to be better, and that the only way that we can do that is through community. And what better way to reach community than music?
Yeah.
And because that music is like you can say something to someone, and you kind of have to open yourself up to it. It's like, can I trust this person? Music just has an ability to just be like, I'm in.
Yeah.
I can tell I believe you. It's like, I really like the sounds, yes, but it's like there's an emotional
Yeah.
connection that melody and lyric can do towards people. I mean, obviously, that in worship, that's what it is, right? It's like
Yeah.
that's the direct connection to God, is musical expression in a space with people. So, but when you can have people that don't know Christ in these spaces, it's like, we don't want you to feel like you're a guest in this
Right.
space. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you're not a stranger here, just because these people have been following Lauren's career and are just really game for this, you know, and you don't get that. That's okay. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
that's like, this show is for everybody. And, if the worship stuff doesn't, if you don't gravitate towards that, that's okay. You know,
Hmm.
but, but maybe, but maybe you feel something in that moment. Maybe it's just like, because you're there and you're,
Yeah.
you're sitting in it, and it's just like, you see other people crying, and then it's like, oh, maybe I don't have to be defensive. Maybe I don't have to, you know, look at what's happening around me, and maybe I can just work on that direct connection to the
Amazing.
artist. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's the trick with this new music, is like, the mission has never changed.
Mm.
The
Yeah.
mission is always, is like, okay, how do we make this world a little bit better?
Hmm.
How do we create an environment for people to feel safe, and to feel challenged, to love a little bit better, you know?
Yeah.
And that's it, man. It's just like, okay, so let's just let's move past the standard format, because we're really good at the standard format. We can do that. Now let's
Yeah.
do the hard stuff. Let's make like music that could be played on mainstream radio. Let's make that sort of music, all the while you really get into the catalog and you get into the lyrics, and it's like, oh, I see a connection here,
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this if the song's about love, then, I mean, God is love. So boom, that's math. We can do that. Now you're
Yeah.
here. You're cool. And
Yeah.
you might still not know God, and you might have a couple years, or maybe it doesn't happen. It doesn't matter. You just know that this is a safe place. Whenever whenever you want to be
Yeah.
here, you could be here. You're going to be around people that hopefully are on that same journey, or are in a place where they can listen and talk.
Amazing, man.
Church.
Yeah.
Church. So that's it, man. It's just a different kind of church. And that's I think that's the hard stuff, and that's what I want to do long term. Because I came into the camp, I didn't know Jesus. Like, I grew up in a Methodist church, didn't really connect with it. I just went to Sunday school, that whole thing. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
then college happened. I'm like, all right, I need to learn some things. So I'm going to learn about Buddhism. I'm going to learn about all these sorts of different things, Taoism. And very thankful for that journey, because when I came into the camp and I saw how people were moving with Christ in a way that was not banging me over my head. It was just, yet again, permission. That was
Yeah.
it. Throughout the
Yeah.
music, throughout my spiritual life, it was always just like, hey, man, if you ever have questions, just holler, but no pressure. you're here and we're glad you're here. And that's all I needed. I just needed time to get out of my defensive place of just like, oh, I don't know, this feels weird. I don't connect with that,
Yeah.
but I connect with this. And it's like, okay, so just don't connect with that. Just connect with this, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, like, them doing that for me inside the camp, I just love that now I have an opportunity through Lauren to do that with other people. You know,
That's cool.
that's it.
I
I
love
love
it,
it.
man. Thanks
Yeah,
for
bro.
sharing that. It's really cool journey. Love what you guys are doing. Um, there's a segment that we do called 3, 2, 1, and I think it's time for it.
Ooh.
So it's three drummers that have influenced you, two albums, and then one scripture. And so sometimes
Mm,
people need like, give me a minute. I gotta search up that scripture. But
mm-hmm,
I don't like giving a lot of prep time either because I want like, what's the initial response of
mm,
so 3, 2, 1, three drummers, two albums, one scripture. It's all yours.
man. Okay, so three drummers. Um, Number one's probably Keith Carlock. Um, play with Steely Dan, right? Um, that was the first performance I ever saw. I was in fifth grade. I saw Steely Dan, and he played a solo on Josie, and I was like, I'm gonna do that for a living. DeAnthony Parks is probably
Hmm.
my second. He, I mean, he's kind of like a part of a lot of weird projects, including Andre 3000's the flute album. He's on that. Does like a lot of sampling and drumming stuff. It's super awesome. And number three is probably Brian Blade. I'm sure a lot of drummers can probably attest to his sense of dynamics, um, how he is as a person um, is dictated and expressed. So, like immediately on the drums, there's no thinking about dynamics. It's just who he is,
Yeah.
his physical, like the way he pushes his body into like a performance. He's my favorite. He's the only drummer to make me cry on a drum solo. That's weird, but it's absolutely true. How do you do that? Um, Two albums. That's fun. I'm I'm gonna say The Clash's London Calling is probably. I mean, that's my favorite album. I'm gonna say just because of the variety on that album. I Topper Heaton is a ridiculous drummer, and he's just like super loose. And I love the writing on it. I think it's super smart and it's timeless. And then, man, the second one, I think I have to say the Mars Volta. There's that album Deloused at the Comatorium. It's a Rick Rubin
Hmm.
production. So they sound it's prog rock band, hardcore, Latin fusion. It's just like a mishmash of a bunch of stuff. But Rick was just like brought them all together. Drummer John Theodore,
Hmm.
who like gosh, one of the hardest hitting drummers. I think he was playing like a stainless steel Ludwig kit on that album, which is just insane. Um,
So cool.
yeah, and I mean, scripture, man. I recently just got married, so I mean, and especially through this time of of love. I mean, just getting into love is patient, love is kind. I am so. I know it's just like this the easiest one, but for me, that is just like because I'm a very emotion first guy. I'm very uh I speak in a way that is I try to speak with love and I try to yet again create space, yada yada. That's like my big thing. But to understand what love truly is, and the sacrifice that has to go into that, I really do think that that scripture has, especially these days, when um, when things are a little bit harder, you
Yeah.
know, health stuff, and especially being on tour and being away, it's just leading into like what love actually looks like. with with my wife, with my friends, with complete strangers, with folks that I have disdain for in politics, in people that are mean, you know, like getting into that
Yeah.
because like I know that's like forever, but I'm having like it. I think that's where I really need to lean into. It's just to get back to the basics, you know,
Love it. First
and
Corinthians
yeah,
13.
there you go, baby.
It's good.
Yeah, man. So that's
That's good.
and yeah, I'm still learning, I'm still studying, but I think what it really comes down to is yeah, just creating a an environment uh where I can do what Paul and Jared and Hav had done for me all day, which is just open hugs, open hearts,
Yeah.
and just and also being able to have tough conversations. All
Yeah.
those guys have just been that for me, and like being able to do that for others. That's the goal. So, yeah,
Amen.
man.
Very cool. So good. Okay, last piece of advice that you want to leave with drummers, and then after that, just let us know how we can follow you, like social
Mm.
media, if it's a YouTube channel or that sort. But yeah, just we're talking to a lot of drummers, even maybe some worship teams, worship leaders that watch and tune in. Um, it could be music related, it could be a life thing.
Mm.
So I don't want to limit your answer, but just a piece of advice you want to leave with our listeners today.
I love that. Well, I guess it's the one that I would tell myself, which I think is just always um, challenge your music in regards to obviously with like practice. How can I make a performance better? Challenge negative thoughts with towards yourself in particular. Any sort of
Yeah.
negative thoughts that you have towards yourself, put it on trial. You know, put it on trial. That's it. Is that true? Is there validity to this? Okay, but if there isn't, then give it its time and move on, and then challenge like what it means to to carry a heart that is pointed towards God.
Yeah.
How like what does that actually look like? How do we make ourselves available to people that need that heart? You know, so I think it's challenging in a way that isn't just like constantly like evaluating and reevaluating, but just every now and then just check with yourself. It's just like, okay, what am I doing in this space? How can I be there for a brother or sister? You know,
Yeah.
musically, for myself, and then outward. I think that's it.
Great.
It's easy. It's super easy, John. And you can follow me on Instagram, D Sauls. That's Souls with an A. D Sauls Music. And outside of that, I'm just gonna have a lot of music coming out this year. Producing a couple folks, and yet again, John, thank you so much for having me, and it's been a pleasure talking
Yeah.
with you. And I love this community that you have, and yeah, I'm looking forward to watching this grow. And speaking of which, congratulations on your new church as well. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Super
Thanks,
happy for
man.
you, bro.
Fun
You're killing it.
times.